If you're running a wrestling club and you're looking to supplement your existing fundraising efforts, please consider using CauseMatch. CauseMatch is a peer-to-peer online crowdfunding campaign, and past results show that this type of a campaign using CauseMatch will help you raise 6 times more than traditional events. And the best part is that it won't cost you an additional 30-40% in overhead. You don't have to change a thing in your current fundraising plans. CauseMatch is just meant to help supplement your existing efforts. Go to causematch.com/wrestling to schedule a 20-minute Zoom call and see if there's an opportunity to grow your fundraising. That's causematch.com/wrestling. All right, Myles Amine, welcome back to the podcast. Recurring guest.
Pleasure to be here. I just said the third time's a charm, so it might make it the best one yet right here.
Well, man, you keep medaling at world tournaments, man. We're gonna have to have you on all the time because it's insane to watch just how it's just so fun to watch you compete, man. And first of all, just congrats on the yet another world medal.
Thank you. Yeah, it's it's exciting to compete. It's a good time, now to be qualified for the Paris Olympics. So now we're ready to kick it into full gear here pretty soon.
They're probably building statues of you in San Marino, 2-time Olympian. You like the mayor when you go over there?
Not yet. I think we set the bar pretty high last Olympics, winning their first medals. So or rightfully so, they're like they expect a lot out of me. But no, it's a great relationship. We as a small country, that's part of the cool thing is everybody there kind of recognizes you or knows you, and it's just very welcoming, great culture.
Yeah, I was looking it up this morning, just getting ready for the show. And so what San Marino is like basically right next to Italy, super small, but a long history. What's the tradition and like the history of San Marino again?
So I've become an expert at explaining this, by now. It's actually, so it's an independent republic, landlocked in Italy. So it's literally surrounded by Italian borders. And it's not really borders. I mean, you can drive right in. A lot of people in Italy or in San Marino are actually dual citizens of Italy. So they share a lot of similar, cultural aspects. The food is very similar. Just the lifestyle. Actually it's in a region of Italy called Emilia Romagna. So it's like, major city in there is Bologna, kind of in the heart of Italy, if you'd like look at it on a map. And it shares a lot of culture or similar cultural aspects to just that region of Italy. But I will say that when it comes to your nationality, it's very clear that, they don't call themselves Italians, like you're San Marinese. And I think that just comes from the fact that it's one of the oldest independent republics in the world. So a lot of those people, right, they I don't know if it was fighting to keep their independence, because, very small country, right? Like, 33,000 people. But they found a way for that long to remain independent, since almost, I think, 1700 years, around 300 AD. So,
Wow.
It's a big deal to call yourself San Marinese. Yeah.
That's a long time. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, they survived some pretty major world events, right? As far as, some some of the major conquests, conquering, even World War II, right? They came into San Marino when it was independent, when Mussolini was kind of running the show in Italy. And they negotiated to basically just like to basically run as kind of run as their independent state, but to follow kind of the plan that Italy had in place. And so they got away with like, whoa, we'll appoint somebody in San Marino to kind of, keep everyone in check.
Is it Catholic, Protestant,
so crazy history,
Muslim, or what is it?
Yeah, it's mostly Catholic. It's a very Christian driven state or country.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the majority. It's very similar to Italy in that sense, as far as their And
That's
politically, I think that they've flip-flopped around or flip-flopped around as far as like more like socialist state to, the democratic capitalist. I think that's where more so, I couldn't tell you at this exact day, because another thing that's super interesting and people will probably be kind of flabbergasted by this, is that every 6 months they change their president. So it's called the Capita Regenti, and it's like basically the head. There's two people that are appointed every 6 months to basically run the show in San Marino.
wow.
And so it's crazy because most people are like, how can you get anything done in 6 months? But I'm not super into politics, but it's just that was fascinating to
That's
me
very
that,
fascinating.
because even in my time there, I've got to shake the hand of like multiple different, what we would compare to as presidents.
Wow. That's fascinating. Yeah, it's like, I mean, everyone knows of Italy, obviously, and it's a great place to go, but man, might have to add San Marino to the list. It's a nice little spot to check out.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, you're talking an old kind of like a medieval vibe where it's up in the mountain, to like the whole city is built upon the mountain. And I mean, there's one of the most historic things about it is they have this thing called the Tremonti, which is basically like three almost castle-like figures that are built upon the mountain. So they kind of were the old lookouts, or the old
Mm-hmm.
like stronghold points, and so those kind of are built within the city. So you get like, you go there, and you can go there for as long as you want. I would say you can make even a day trip out of it, because it's not the biggest country, but just to see the city, like I said, it's called La Città, the city, literally. And it's beautiful. I mean, the views that you get, you can see the Adriatic Sea from up in the top of the city, which is about 20 miles east. But you get up there and you can just see the Tuscan landscape, because that's kind of where Italy is also centered, kind of in the Tuscan region of Italy. So
Mm-hmm.
you see like the beautiful hills with all the vineyards, and houses built upon the hills. It's a pretty cool. I mean, I've been a lot of places, and it's still dang near at the top of the list for just the views and kind of the aesthetic of it.
Wow. Sounds like a great place and definitely something to check out. I love history, so all that stuff is like right up my alley, man.
Yeah, yeah, it's a very historical place. Like I said, one of the oldest independent republic in the world. So
Yeah. I mean, that's
that's
insane.
a big deal.
And it's cool to see, like,
Yeah.
going back to Tokyo, you were their flag bearer, man. Like, that is such an honor. And man, and then to go on to get a medal with all that pressure, it's like unbelievable. And I know last Worlds didn't go how you wanted. So for you to come back and rebound this year and get a medal in the Olympic year, that had to feel good, man. Give us your thoughts on the Worlds.
It's funny when you reached out to me about doing this conversation. I don't remember exactly when we talked, but I think that was it the Europeans or like before Europeans or something this year.
Mm-hmm.
I think we talked earlier this year, but it was funny because I was just thinking about where I was at in the beginning of the year, and then kind of where I'm at now, like how far I've come. And I think that I might have mentioned on the podcast before, but there was just something I needed to kind of reset, kind of get figured out, and kind of get back to my old ways of, where I was, my mindset was, where my training was. And it was a process, leading up. I look at the beginning of this year. I had some even kind of getting off the world championships last year. I was in like a 6 month rut where, I went to the worlds. I didn't have the performance I wanted. I went to the Bill Farrell, and I thought like, this is a good bounce back tournament. Like,
It's a
it's
get
not,
right
it's not that
tournament.
it's easy, but it's a get right tournament, right? I mean, you're going to have maybe one or two tough matches, but ultimately I was going in there maybe a little bit too overconfident that like, I can win this tournament. And I get upset by, some guy from Ukraine that I hadn't heard of, before. And then go to the first ranking tournament and, deal with just some small injuries and stuff, but fought through it. And I get pinned for the first time in like, I didn't get pinned in high school. So it had to be the first time in like 8 to 10 years. and by a guy from Japan, right? He, foot sweeps me down and just catches me off guard, and don't even end up placing at that tournament. So that it's just like, I had to kind of have a heart to heart with myself and, hit the reset button and say like, what do I need to do to just get out of this? Cause right now, whatever I'm doing is not working, and maybe it's just a mindset thing. Maybe it's a training thing, but, I really was intentional about my training process moving forward from there and making sure that I had to remind myself, my coaches can help me, my support system can help me, but ultimately, like, I gotta take a little bit more responsibility here to say like, this is on you, Mom. I was like, if you still love doing this, like, you got to figure this out. And just made the right adjustments. And I think a lot of it was just kind of like putting less pressure on myself and just kind of having a little bit more faith and, in God and in the process. Just like doing the right things and saying like, hey, as long as the process, the training process, the preparation is there, like, I can surrender the outcome for the results. And that was really a big part of this year, was just like, have fun with, the training process. Just every day you show up, like, just make it fun. Even if it's a grind, like, you find something fun in that grind. And, I'm making a short story long here.
No, please. This is great. Keep going.
That really knew just this kind of upward trajectory from the start of the year to, where I ended up in September. I had a great tournament. The Europeans fell a little short, but I just kept taking away positives instead of looking at all the negatives. And then I went to, the ranking in July and get an upset of the guy that beat me in the European finals. And I'm like, okay, this whole thing's starting to come together, and I always tell myself, like, it's kind of a little saying, like, I'm the best when it matters most. And that's what, my big motto going into the Worlds was like, regardless of the training, like, I'm going to rise to the occasion here. And coming off the tournament, it was great because I had a lot of positives, but I'm like, I think it was Jake Herbert. I got to give him a shout out. He gave me a great saying. He was like, grateful, but not satisfied, and that was really how I feel right now. It's like, I'm so grateful. I got a world bronze medal, my first medal, at a world tournament, qualified for the Olympics. But ultimately it's like, the whole reason I'm still in this thing is because, I want a gold medal, and whether it's a world gold, Olympic gold, but, I want to shoot for the top. And so it's like, it's back to the drawing board from here on, but I'm very grateful, and I've had so much fun in these past 6 months, just kind of pushing, for this world tournament that, so I'm energized and ready to, kind of figure out this next cycle. And, now it's like an Olympic year. It's like, I felt the same way a lot of the times in college wrestling, where I would have ruts in like the middle of the season. Right. But then as soon as the NCAA, it's almost like that excitement comes and you're like, it's easy to be motivated. So I'm excited that now it's like, there's a target, there's an end goal in mind for sure. And that makes it that much easier to show up, like I said, every day and just get after it.
Well, almost anyone who's been to the Olympics and had success, they've either won the gold or won a medal. That's such a high that getting up for something after that can be such a challenge. And people call it the post-Olympic blues. Even David Taylor said he felt the same thing for about a year. He's like, I don't even know why I'm doing this anymore. So like, did you feel some of that? Just it was such a buildup, and then like trying to get motivated again? Or like, what was that process like for you coming off of Tokyo?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a real thing, that the post-Olympic blues. It was kind of, at first you're riding that wave, you're riding that high, and then ultimately I think that I had a unique situation and that I knew about coming back for the college season. And so, I was chasing different goals pretty much
about that.
right from the start. And so for me, it was like more like post college wrestling blues, because, I'd been doing both of those at the same time, and kind of one was complementing the other for the longest time. It was like, when I wasn't doing the world wrestling, I could focus on the NCAA season, and they felt like two totally different paths, that I'm facing. Although they did complement each other. But once the NCAA season was over, then it was like, Olympics are done, NCAA, my college career is done. now, I mean, I have this world tournament coming up, right? But ultimately it was like I was riding some of the highest highs that you could possibly have with, just the NCAA, like the Michigan had,
Oh
the
my
the
God.
Olympics, winning a bronze medal. Like, we were right in the thick of it for so long, and I was right in the thick of it for so long that it was like almost too laid back. Like my mentality was almost too laid back. Like, this world tournament, I want to be a world champion, but it was hard to kind of shift my mindset, my perception that was just as important as the things that were happening before.
So you kind of had that
And maybe
delayed,
that was maybe
like
that has a
like that. It's like kind of reminds me of like
yeah
if you get out of a big relationship and you go back to a girlfriend right away, and then you have the delay just a little bit longer after versus like getting right then going to find a new girl. Like you had to do Tokyo, and then that amazing, and that Michigan season was insane. That's the year you wrestled Brooks at the Big Ten. You guys win the Big Tens, Nationals at Detroit. So it's almost like a
yep
double whammy for you. Oh, well, I totally forgot that was the cadence of the timeline for all that. Wow.
yeah, and it was I think, or I don't think I had time to think about it all. I feel like I was just going through the motions, not in a bad way, but just like I didn't have time to be like, is this is this what I want to keep doing? I mean, I just kept doing it because it was bigger than me at the time. And so and coming off that NCAA season, obviously, I suffered a loss to Brooks in the finals. We had, crazy kind of back and forth those last few weeks. Um, it was like, I had to accept that I wouldn't ever accomplish my NCAA, my college goals, which was kind of tough at first, but ultimately I feel like I find a way to kind of mold those into motivators.
Mm-hmm.
But that was what was interesting, is it was like, I almost had to stop, like just put that one, close that chapter of the book. And I think that was part of what made the last year so hard, was like, all right, now I have to refocus and realize that like these goals are just as big, if not bigger, than the ones that I had in college.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was an important piece. And I think that took a lot of self-reflection, but ultimately now looking back, I'm like, I wouldn't have changed. I mean, to say you wouldn't want to go back and re-wrestle the match is crazy, because
Right.
I think there's matches I won that I would want to go back and re-wrestle, right? Just you see, as somebody that's just, I love, the sport of wrestling and love technical and just every aspect of it. It's like I watch a match and I'm like, oh, I could have made that adjustment, right? So to say I didn't want to go back and wrestle any of the matches that I had lost, maybe at the NCAA tournament or any of my college matches, that would be a little
That's
crazy, because I
insane.
would say
Yeah.
I would, but I think ultimately, I'm at the point now where it's like, you know, I've let bygones, and it's like, life goes on, and you start to realize, people always tell you this, right? It's like, you kind of start to forget about or maybe not forget, but you get over that wrestling isn't everything. And
Mm-hmm.
especially college wrestling for me at this point, like I've competed on the world stage and realized like a lot of people, on the world stage they don't really pay attention to college wrestling, which is crazy. I would love to put them on, because it's probably the most exciting, tournament in the world, is the NCAA tournament. But it's just funny that, we consider it everything, when
Mm-hmm.
there's like this grand stage of the world championships, the Olympics, the continental championships. So yeah.
And like the Europeans, I mean, the Pan Ams is almost like it's like almost like a JV event, right? We're gonna steamroll everyone. We might lose one match, period, right? When Cuba was great in the 2000s, different story. But now it's like it's kind of a non-event. But the Europeans, where you gotta go, that's a bloodbath, and like that is just from researching Satia for an old documentary I did. He treated the Europeans on the same level as the world's. Like that's a massive tournament for all those guys, and so to me, like your signature moment of this year is that semifinal win, man. 15 seconds left. You get that takedown at the Europeans, blood down your face. That's a big momentum shift. Did you feel that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was kind of the turning point for this year for me. because that was a guy that was a tough opponent, but I knew like I can beat this guy. Like, and that kind of got me back to my old ways. Even it's just like textbook the way that it happened, right? I get kicked in the face. It's right at the end of the match, score, and I got blood dripping down my face, and that moment I just felt like this is why I do this. This is why I'm wrestling. Like this moment right here is just like these moments where you never feel more alive than in that 15 to 30 seconds. But at the same time, I had no clue what was kind of happening because I didn't have that time to think. I was just kind of reacting off of instinct.
Mm-hmm.
So that moment was, that moment, although I think that it wasn't like I was wrestling at my best in that match or, even at that European Championship tournament, just kind of having that little, moment where I had to go get it. My back was all, and my family hates this, especially my mom. She'll always say like, "Hey, why do you have to wait till the end to always try
Mm-hmm.
to pull it off?" We get you like being clutch, but for me that was a signature. Like, okay, we're back. Like this is it right here. And
Well, the
like I
heart
said,
you
just kind of
showed,
reminded
like,
me why I love.
even if you weren't, I think the fact that you weren't wrestling at your best, like you had to dig it out, like the heart, the fight, man, it was just, that's like, you love to see that because, yeah, when it's going well, definitely. But when it's not going well, to still pull it out. Again, it was the semis, you made it to the finals and you wanted to win the whole thing. But just that is like, that's such a big deal to be in the finals at the Euros. And then going into the ranking series event and then going into the world championships. I mean, we know that the worlds before the Olympics is an absolute bloodbath. It seemed like that watching from afar. Like some of the upsets were insane. I mean, what was the vibe like when you finally got to Serbia and you're around all these guys?
Uh, I think that I was not expecting. It was like a calm before the storm. You could just tell like everyone was locked in. As soon as we got there, and I was pumped because this year we actually did an acclimation camp, in Austria. So like a little bit away just from all the chaos, the madness, the noise. And we showed up to Serbia on like Thursday, when I was competing on a Saturday, so like 2 days before.
Mm-hmm.
And it really, I think it allowed for me to appreciate the environment, just that intensity, but also like I said, just like the calm before storm. I really felt like when I got there, it was like, oh man, this is a ticking time bomb, right? Like everybody's ready to go. You can just tell that like, there's a level of seriousness, but also I think that was the downfall of a lot of guys is
Mm-hmm.
they almost took it too serious. For me, I got there and it was just enough time. Like I felt like I was enough to switch that gear, but we also just had such a good time, acclimating in Austria and whatnot that I felt super loose. And like you said, I mean, this was one of the craziest world championships I had seen, I think, since I've been watching, just with all the upsets. So clearly, Olympic year, you got a lot of, allocation spots on the line. It's like people showed up to wrestle, and some guys, maybe they felt that pressure a little bit more, and that was why, some of these big names fell. But then also these young guys, some of these guys just rose to the occasion. I think they just turned a lot of heads, and people
Yeah.
didn't expect them to show up like they did.
So who were you in the
So just craziness.
acclimation camp in Austria with?
We had basically the whole Cliff Keen Wrestling Club there. So there was like, well, I guess all the Cliff Keen Wrestling Club guys that were competing. So,
Mm-hmm.
my brother Malik was there. Austin Gomez was there. Alex Daringer was there as my training partner. And then Matt Finesilver was there. His brother's actually the NYC RTC of those guys. Most of those guys joined us, the ones that weren't competing for the US. And then I forgot, Roman Bravo Young, RBY was there with Austin. So
Oh,
we
nice.
had a very diverse,
Dude, that's a
like we had
crew.
6, 7 colleges represented. I mean, and then the Austrian guys who are great dudes. There's like 4 guys that competed at the Worlds for Austria, so they were there as well. And they
Okay.
had been hosted. We hosted them in June of this year, so that was how we made the connection. They came to Michigan for a couple weeks, 2 weeks to train with us. Just great dudes. So we brought them. We kind of brought them in, and then they returned the favor.
Nice.
And we had such a good time there. So
Wow. And plus, I mean, For us, it's kind of commonplace to see Sergey, but I know overseas, like people see Sergey, it's like a little crazy for them. They still get excited about it. Like you're rolling in with that dude,
Yeah.
it's a different story.
Yeah, he was very happy that we were doing acclimation camp in Austria, I think, because he had a week in Serbia. He stayed there for its full week. And so, by the time he likes to stay locked in, right, and just only wants to coach, but there's people that, are constantly trying to get lunch, dinner, like even if it's not fans, it's just old friends and stuff like that. So he knows about he's just too nice of a guy to say no, I think. So ultimately he was like super happy that it was just this kind of reserved, calm environment where, we could kind of control a lot of the, variables.
Well, I think I told you maybe we did have a podcast pretty recently after that Europeans, because I was working on the Cejudo thing. And when Cejudo was at the Junior Worlds in 06, Sergey was the coach, and Team USA was staying at like a kind of like an equivalent of like a Marriott. And the hotel guy's like, I can't let Sergey stay in a 3-star hotel. He had to stay at a hotel across town, like a really nice one.
Yeah, I remember you telling me this
yeah,
story.
The guy's like, I wouldn't be able to go home with myself if I let Sergey stay at a 3-star hotel. It's like, that's the kind of guy we're talking about, folks. Like even still, like people, and I've never been to a Worlds, but I can only imagine when you go to something like that. And I'm sure it's the same with our American champions as well, right? Like Kevin Jackson, John Smith, they're probably getting pulled around, but we're talking Sergey here. Like that's got to give you a little confidence going into a big dog event like that, rolling in with someone like Sergey, and obviously all the coaches.
Yeah. I mean, I think that that was a big part of where my confidence came from, is just beforehand. And I think part of the tough thing with managing RTCs is like is trying to figure out the dynamic of balancing the college season while still meeting the RTC guys' needs, during those 5 months. And that's something that we're just continuing to figure out as a club. But ultimately I think all clubs deal with it in a sense, right? It's very important because RTCs were originally made to, complement the college team in a sense, right? I mean, to build around that's why they're built at the university. And it's partly a recruiting tool. It's partly, just to keep your best guys around after they graduate. And so, a big part of it was, I was looking at, that kind of slump that I was going through, and it was hard to, obviously, and then Sergey was dealing with getting a lot of guys ready for US tournaments and for, that cycle that was coming up in April and whatnot. So part of, kind of the coaches is just being on the right page. We have so many great coaches at Michigan. We have, 5 total coaches on staff. And so it's like making sure that everybody, can align and we have the right training schedule was a big part of it. And I think that was just a communication thing that, coming in, that once I communicated my needs, it was like, I knew that I had all the resources around me. And so, there's a lot of confidence when you're walking in with, we went to the Worlds. It was Sean Mormet, Kevin Jackson, Sergey Beloglazov, Josh Torella. And it's
Let's
like, I trust all those guys.
Come on. That's
right. I mean,
me excited,
you got
man.
a couple Olympic champions. You have, multiple time NCAA All-Americans, Big Ten champs, like world champion. Like there's just so many accolades to that, between those guys. And so it was like, and then Debo, I got to give him a shout out. Dave Boyd was holding down the fort at home.
I love it.
Nothing went up in flames while, basically the whole coaching staff was gone. So shout out to Debo too.
That's like, man, he was the head coach for a long time, right? Before Eastern dropped their program. So like you got a real, I mean, all the coaches at Michigan could be head coaches and probably, maybe not Josh, but a lot have been head coaches. So it's like, and he obviously could. So it's like, it's such an incredible environment at Michigan that it's just like, it's got to be so exciting to train in that environment. But at the same time, when you're going through that slump, the thing that kept coming to mind for me was, it sounds lonely, right? Anytime an individual athlete's going through a slump, coaches or not, it's lonely, right? Like you get on the plane ride home, you get back to, after the Bill Farrell, for example, you get on the plane ride home. It's 2 days after, it's a dreary Tuesday in December. It's like there's some low points there and some real like soul searching that has to go on. And so do you think a lot of that was you just weren't going as hard in the trainings and that was impacting your mentality, or you were just, it was more mental than it was physical, if you had to say? And for any young wrestlers kind of who are maybe listening, going through that too.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit of both. And I think it can't be understated that like wrestling is so mental. And so if you go to training every day and you could be working your butt off. I feel like for me that was never it was never a major issue was the work ethic. I think that if you tell me to run through a brick wall, I will. But it was just me believing in that, what we were doing. And nobody can really do that besides yourself. You can have the best, like you look at our club and it was like, we have, some incredible coaches. But ultimately maybe I was getting too analytical, which I think can happen to a lot of wrestlers, right? It's just like, you have to trust the process and that you're doing the right things. And there's always time to reflect. Like right now, this is a reflection period for me. I think now that I have some time before I compete again, you have to be willing to, and this is, advice that if you can start this as a youth wrestler or a high school wrestler, it's such an added bonus. And I think it can take you so far. It's just being willing to reflect and like basically break down like what's going wrong, right, and what's going wrong, the pros and cons. And so I've been, picked up the habit of journaling a lot and, trying to write down even, break down a lot of the different areas of my wrestling so that, when it comes down to it, I have something to look back on and be like, okay, like there was 10 good things that happened at the Worlds, right? But there was these 2 bad things that had happened, whether it was a mentality thing or just a technical adjustment that I didn't make. So, just I think it's being very, again, I go back to the word intentional about your training process. And then once you're you're around the right people, it's like you have to buy in. There has to be some buy-in to where you can't come to practice every single day and be wondering like, am I going to get better today? Right. It's just like, I know that if I continue to keep working hard, and that my mind's in the right place, I'm enjoying it, because ultimately at the end of the day, if you look at some of the most successful programs in the country right now, there is like, they play games, there's a lot of smiles on their face when you see their, their camera crew coming through in the wrestling room. Right. And so like, it's a beautiful mixture that comes together. I think, both from the work ethic, like when you have a really good work ethic and you're willing to, push boundaries, push yourself to places where people aren't willing to go mentally, that alone will build it. But then it's just like sharpening your mind skills every day. So whether it's working with, a performance psychologist or, somebody who you really trust, like a coach, to say, hey, I want to just keep sharpening my mental game. Like, do you have any ideas? And then the last one, like I said, is like not taking it all too seriously. It's like,
That's such a
at
good
the end of the
point.
day,
Yeah.
wrestling is just this. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the problem that we all make, is like, we think if we take it more serious, then we're going to get better results. And it's like, it kind of actually works counterintuitively. And just to share like a big thing that I had a sticky note on my wall that had this saying, and it said, you can be relaxed and dedicated. Just because you worry more doesn't mean you care more.
Amen to that. Man,
And
that's,
so that was like a big,
I need to,
yeah, I can repeat it again, because I think
go ahead.
yeah, because I think it's just worth, repeating. Is like, I just kept telling myself, you can be relaxed and dedicated. Just because you worry more doesn't mean you care more. Because I myself, I'm just like an overthinker, and I'm somebody that I I definitely care a lot, but sometimes I mistake worrying for caring, right? And it's like, you just build up all this pressure, all this like anxiety, and it's like, at the end of the day, you just, like I said, it's all about like, it's not that serious. It's just a wrestling match. And the crazy thing is if you can have that mentality, it's probably going to take you a lot further than like, oh, I have to win. Like if I don't win, my life's over, right? Like, oh, people are going to think completely different of me. It's like, I think
Yeah.
that's outdated. That maybe was an old school mentality, and that was like a toughness thing back in the day. But ultimately, if you're working your butt off and you're like I said, you're doing the right things, like you should just go into it like, hey, I'm gonna like just have some fun, shoulders loose, right? And go out there and compete and just do it because I love doing it.
Well,
It's that simple.
it's such an important lesson because certainly in wrestling we like to take ourselves very seriously, and in even like myself, right? I'm kind of like, you sound kind of remind me of myself. I'm in sales, right? And I'm always overthinking things. I'm worried a lot. My brother Tanner's 13 months younger. He just fucking wings it. Like, even as a wrestler, like he'd go out there, just smash people. Even if he hasn't been training right, he still had the confidence. So there's some people who have that naturally, then there's others that have to cultivate that. And I'm definitely one of those people. It's more in your camp where I can definitely take things too seriously. And I was just in Oregon for the last week. So our fiscal year ends in September. So the first week of Oregon, or the first week of October, I always take off. So my wife and I were in Oregon and we do a lot of driving. I'm not working. So a lot of thoughts come in, right? And I found this podcast by the Oregon head coach, Dan Lanning. Yeah. Have you heard about this guy at all?
Great.
Dude.
I just watched that video of him with going into the Colorado game, and I became an immediate fan.
That's what got me onto it, because I'm obsessed with Coach Prime. But then I saw that video and I'm like, all right, what's this Dan Lanning guy? Bro, he's 36 years old. He started as an NAIA player, no ties to D1. He basically had like 6 jobs in 10 years. And I listened to a podcast and he said every job he went to was a chance to reinvent himself. And like driving to the next job, like one was like, he was a GA at Pitt, then he becomes a GA at ASU, and he's driving to Tucson or to Tempe, and he's like thinking about all the things he can do better, thinking about all the things he's, can improve at. So I just like that mentality. It's like it could be every tournament, every new job, like that's a chance to reinvent yourself. And like basically by the time you're 35, he becomes the head coach of Oregon, and now they're just dominating. So he's someone I've just gone down a rabbit hole on, but it reminds me a lot of what you're saying with that kind of reflection and kind of seeing where you're at.
Yeah, and I think the more you're willing to do self-reflection, the more you'll realize that it's not that serious. Like
right.
Back to my original point, is like, a lot of it is like all these external pressures are what put, all this stress on us and like make us feel like it's a do or die. Then ultimately when you self-reflect, you realize like, a lot of the things I value are internal, a lot of the things that, or at least that I should value are internal. They're within me, and only I can, really affect or like have a chance to affect. And like you said, it's really important to continue to try to invent yourself. I think that needs to be more normalized. It's like, we want, and especially when you become to like my age, I'm 26, and, it's like, you're supposed to have the set path and you follow this trajectory. And then, that's after that, it's like, there's no more growth, right? Like,
yeah,
I'm just going to become this, whatever life. And it's like, I totally disagree with that. I think, even if you're 35, 40 years old, it's like, you should have a chance to, reinvent yourself, and you're going to be that much better for it, because all that self-reflection just makes you, that much more aware of, who you are and who you can become. And a lot of humans, are not, I'll just say wrestlers, right? They don't realize their potential and like how far they can actually take it, and that's the beauty of it. Is like, I look at my story and it was like, I until my junior year in high school, I really wasn't even on many Division I colleges' radar. Maybe because of my last name, but as far as my accolades, like, didn't really place at any national tournaments. I was third in the state of Michigan. Halfway through my junior season, I'm like not even ranked. I think I'm ranked, third or fourth, like going into the state tournament. So it was like, there, like I said, there's always those little moments, like those key moments where you kind of get a chance to reinvent yourself. And so it's important to kind of continue to like, just, to reflect and do that.
Yeah. I think it's just having a growth mindset is big on that, right? Like, it's either fixed or growth.
Absolutely.
Mindset. And so you're going into actually the thing I was going to ask you is, so we can't forget about Mason Paris. So Mason Paris, what a tournament he had. And you guys may have known much sooner. And I'm curious, like, what was was he training all summer as if he was the world team member? And like, what coaches from Michigan went with him to like the Team USA acclimation camp?
Yeah. So, I think inside scoop was like Mason had found out in July, after coming off of his ranking tournament win, that like, hey, there's some potential that you might wrestle at the Worlds, or there's a good chance. I think at the time they'd even told him like 50-50, but they were like, just stay ready. Like, this could blow up, like, or not blow up, but it could become like the ball might be in your court very soon. And so, Mason, yeah, he did. He just, it was great because he basically had a training cycle for that ranking tournament. And then he was told that, and then he was able to just keep training right through July and August. And, he got the news sometime in August, late August. And, he was training like he was going to go. So, it was kind of that like, stay ready so you don't have to get ready approach. And yeah, I mean, he crushed it. And so that was pretty cool. Josh Torella, that was kind of what happened is like, once they found out, we were like, well, we got to just keep sending more coaches. Hopefully, like, we're running on thin air here because, we have 30 something college guys that need to, they're just starting off school, right? Like not 10 freshmen, or like think like, large amount of freshmen coming in, right? You got like welcome week and all this crazy stuff coming up. And it's just like usually the most, like I feel like the most chaos happens the first month of school, right? Just because,
definitely.
it's fresh, everybody's back. There's a lot of partying, a lot of crazy stuff going on. That's why I had to give a shout out to Dave, is because like he dealt with all that while we were all overseas, having fun, competing at the Worlds, and so
There's
Josh
always
ended up
like
going
one or
with
two
Mason,
guys that
and
like show up and you're like, you thought maybe they could handle D1 and they can't. And it's like, they don't want to do the training or they're partying, and they may drag a few dudes down with them. It's like, you never know.
Yeah, luckily, I think, like I said, I don't think there was any major fires to put out. I think, that's part of the beauty of culture, is like we've built a culture where, we've tried to recruit guys that, are serious about wrestling, and just, maybe not even serious about wrestling, but just don't, they come to school for the right reasons, and,
Right.
they don't cause too many headaches for the coaches.
And so
it was cool. I mean,
so Chirella went with Mason.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And so Josh went with Mason, and and actually KJ came over late. So KJ was just met us in Serbia. We had Sean and Sergey and my dad. Actually, my dad is it's funny. He's like the liaison for San Marino, Big Mike. Yeah. He was, he was basically, I don't know, as a coach or a wrestler, because him and Sergey, they had some goes. Like he thought he could still, he was back training days, because him and Sergey were doing some parterre and some takedowns. I mean, he was living it up there.
Man.
So it was great having him too. I mean, it was a family affair, and I've grown to just love that aspect, right? That it's like so cool to me that, I got my brother, coming alongside me. My dad is basically, a coach. We've gotten him credentialed as a coach for San Marino, and all those little things, they add up for sure. Just to kind of keep me calm, collected, and just loose. It's a beautiful thing.
Bro, your dad might be the next prime minister for all we know.
Yeah, yeah. We will try to work on it. We need to get him his citizenship first, because it's my mom's side of the family is San Marino's.
Oh, it's your mom's side. Okay.
Yeah, it's my mom's side. So my dad he was born in Lebanon. My dad was born in Lebanon, so he doesn't have Lebanese citizenship anymore though. Yeah, so it's pretty crazy that, that's actually the wrestling side of my family comes from him, and my grandfather, I think I've said this before, was Olympian for Lebanon back in the day in wrestling.
So I do remember your grandfather being bro, I actually got choked up this morning. I was looking at your Instagram, the picture of you on the bronze medal at Tokyo, and you said in the post that you felt your grandfather on the podium with you. I'm like, man, that hit me hard. So that was your dad's dad. And so your dad was actually born in Lebanon. Like, that's one of the most turbulent places of, like, you look at the 80s and the Civil War there. Is that why they left?
Yep. Yeah. Ultimately, my grandfather, he had a great life in Lebanon, and, he could just sense something that I think he knew he wanted to, my dad is one of 10, one of 10. So he has 9 siblings. So
Where
I
they
think he
at?
knew, just I have my aunts and uncles mostly live in the area, in Dearborn, Michigan. But then I have, an aunt out east,
But they're
in
all
Rhode
here in the
Island.
U.S.
So we
basically.
got, they're all in the U.S. Yeah, they're all in the U.S. I mean, what ended up happening is my grandfather, and my grandmother, they picked up and they knew, like, we might have to start from nothing, but it's a safer bet than what could happen here, ultimately. And so they picked up and kind of did that and moved to actually start in Florida. My dad's family started in Florida, and then ended up in Michigan. So pretty
Wow. You
cool
look at
story.
that's such a very interesting part of the world, especially what's going on right now in Gaza. It's like, man, our hearts go out to
Yeah,
both
yeah.
everyone, man. It's just crazy. And like Lebanon was at the thick of that in the 70s and 80s, with Israel and all that. So wow. I forgot that that's where they were from. So your
Yeah, it's
mom's
yeah,
side,
it's
okay.
it's yeah, but my mom's side, my great grandfather came over from San Marino. And then he would go back and forth, spending my grandpa spent a lot of time in San Marino. Um,
Okay.
my mom's dad. And so they had a tile business. That was actually why my mom's side of the family came over, is because San Marino is, like, even still to this day, they have Del Conco, which is like, my mom is a Molaroni. That's like her maiden name, the Molaroni family. They run the tile business over over in
What?
San Marino. I mean, it's like
Okay.
massive industry. Yeah. So like her cousins, they have a very prominent tile business that has locations in the US and like Tennessee, and all over the place.
Dang.
So my grandfather and my uncles, they still, they're in the tile business. And that was ultimately why a lot of San Rene's actually immigrated to Detroit area, was to kind of start up this, in the masonry kind of
Mm-hmm.
construction, tile, like that industry.
Dang.
I think it
That's
was the poured wall. The poured wall, is that, like, what is that kind? Poured wall? I
yeah.
don't know. So whatever it is, that was like patented by San Rene's people. Like they were some of the first to kind of bring that to the United States and to that industry. So
Man, you guys are an
a
international
little history
family,
lesson,
man. Yeah.
history
No,
buff.
I appreciate that. I really
Yeah.
do. So so it would be your mom's side. Okay. Man, well it's like every time I see you at a world tournament or like even a ranking series tournament, it's like you got the whole crew there. I'm like, that's so cool that everyone, it's like a real family affair. Cause a lot of like freestyle wrestling in the past, it was always kind of a lonely endeavor, right? Like compared to the
Yeah.
NCAAs where people are going and watching, it can, especially in like I said, 2000s up until this recent heyday we've been in, not a lot of people are even really paying attention to some of those senior level tournaments unless you're really in the weeds. So to be able to go with your family, your coaches, your dad, that's got to be a big boost.
Yeah. I mean, it was amazing. My sister and my brother-in-law, her husband, came over too. I mean, and the last time I think she had come to a tournament was, like, she's my good luck charm, because she came to the 2019 World Championships when I qualified too.
Yeah, did you
So
not medal at that?
she
You said
came
this is your
over.
first medal. I thought you medaled before.
Yeah, I took fifth. No, I
Fifth.
took
Okay.
fifth. So I
Got it.
qualified because, yeah, they allocated 6 spots. So as soon as I won in the quarterfinals, I was qualified. And
Got
then I
it. Got
lost
it.
in Russian Nafanov in the medal match.
Bro, what
Um,
happened to that guy?
I don't know. Yeah, it was interesting that they sent that, the other guy. I watched the Russian nationals, so I saw he looked like there was something wrong, because I mean the guy that had beat up on him in the semifinals, and then this guy who represented them beat that guy. So it wasn't even like he didn't lose in the finals. He lost, like, in the
Yeah.
semis to the guy who took second. So interesting. I mean, who knows with the whole Russians, AIN or whatever it is a
Yeah.
totally. I think we could probably discuss that for an hour alone.
Well, the morale must have been
So
all time low for those guys going in. Like they don't even know if they're gonna wrestle. Like imagine how that would play mind games with you. And yeah, obviously they had one of their worst tournaments ever. The Sidakov, I mean, unbelievable what he did. But let's get into 86 a little bit. So the first couple rounds, you're rolling. You tech Mexico, you beat China, then you get your hands on the great Yazdani. What did he feel like, man? What was your thoughts on getting that match? Was that your first time wrestling him?
second, wrestled him at the 2019 World Championships, and he kind of mauled me.
Okay.
That was probably when I felt like there was levels to that. That was my first year on the world stage. And, I was, I think 21, 22 years old, and just
Wow.
wasn't ready for that kind of pressure a couple years back, right? Like 4 years ago. But going into this one, I think that was much more confident. And I mean, I had intentions to win that match. Like, I completely, was
Mm-hmm.
completely confident that I could come out and win. That was the goal. I mean, looking at the ranking tournament, um, I think it was the semifinals where I knew that if I win this match in the semis, I'm going to be on the same side as Yazdani or Taylor. I didn't, or in the same quarterfinal as them, because
Mm.
at the time at the ranking tournament, Yazdani and Taylor were in the same quarterfinal bracket. And so it was
Oh.
like a lot of people were laughing because, or not even laughing, but just kind of like happy about it, was that I split the two up because I jumped in between them, and then kind of took over Taylor's spot in that 4-5
Mm-hmm.
zone to wrestle Yazdani in the quarterfinals. So I mean, I knew even in the ranking tournament, I was like, you know, I'm just not someone who would ever forfeit a match to try to avoid
Fuck
somebody.
no.
And so
Hell
I
no.
wanted, right,
That's
like winning the
insane.
ranking tournament
Yeah.
when so I mean, I won that ranking tournament, and I was like, all right, like, is Donnie in the quarters? Like, that's, obviously there's going to be some good guys that could potentially be drawn in, but this is the one that I've been waiting for. Like, I'm in it for the glory.
Mm-hmm.
I want, if I just beat the guys that I've already beaten, there's really, to me, there's no, like, there's nothing I mean, it's doable, but if I like to shoot for the moon, right? So I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
give me the heavy hitters, right? I want the heavy hitters. And so I went into that match, and I think ultimately there was just there was an adjustment that I didn't make, that allowed for him to push me out just one too many times.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was right there in the fight, just throwing hard collar ties back and forth. But I was expecting underhooks, and he didn't underhook me. I don't think he underhooked me once that match, which is, if
Interesting.
you go back and watch, you'd be completely surprised to see. But I mean, he didn't throw one underhook. And so that was totally, where I think there was a little bit of a fault in my strategy and my game plan was, he was doing a lot of heavy snapping and just like, kind of forcing me to the edge. And I was expecting to play this kind of like underhook. I was ready. I had a game plan for a different strategy that I thought that he was going to, throw out at me.
And he changed the script.
But I mean, if you look at the match, yeah, he changed the script, and which is, that's what happens at this level, right? It's just like, it's, you go out there and you have a game plan, but you have to be willing to make adjustments accordingly. And, I think I made those adjustments, but it was a little too late. Like towards the end of the match, I started feeling like more confident in my game plan, but by then, like I said, it was, I think I gave up a passivity point in like three push outs. But when you look at it, it was one takedown to one takedown. I took him
Right.
down once, he took me down once. So,
And to get a
that was the win in the
takedown
match, was like,
and to leave the match with some momentum like that, that's big, right? I mean, that's
yeah,
everything,
yeah,
right?
yeah, I think it is. That was,
I mean, outside of
just
winning it,
looking at
obviously, right?
confidence wise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that, I hold myself to a pretty high standard. So, just to get that takedown was like I said, grateful but not satisfied. Back to that saying, was like, you got to look at the wins, because if you only look at the losses, it's going to be a lot like, tougher, longer road mentally. So, that was definitely a win. But now it was like even before wrestling the next day, like knowing, okay, there's a qualification spot on the line, there's a world medal on the line. I was like, my mind just started racing, like, what adjustments can I make in that match? Like, I wrote a ton of stuff down, and it's just something that, I've kind of learned to realize, is like, you have to love that aspect of it, is like the technical, like strategic side of it, is like, okay, if I lost a match, I got to figure out why. And that was a big part of what I was doing right after that match. I was talking to the coaches, I was talking to
Mm-hmm.
myself, saying like, all right, mentally, like, what was going through my head, and ultimately, like, how did I give up those push outs? And so that was something that I think was a great takeaway, was like, I feel like, there was just one step closer to kind of figuring this all out like, you just got to keep making those adjustments. And ultimately it's always the wrestling match is going to be, there's variables you can't control. So that is something that you can control. And that's where I find a lot of peace in that is that
Yeah.
just keep
It's
working at it,
awesome.
right? Keep chipping it away and good things will happen.
Well, you left that match so motivated. It
So
sounds like it's like on to the next one. And then you got the two huge matches in the repechage, and I can pronounce it, wrestlebacks basically.
yeah,
But
yeah, I think it's repechage. Yeah.
repechage. So the first one, you kind of roll through the guy. And then what about the bronze medal match? What'd you know about him going in? Did you wrestle him before?
No, I never wrestled him before, and I think I'd only seen like one of his matches before. He's just in that Asian circuit, and so like there just wasn't a lot of chances to see him.
So you guys
But
like
I
at the
knew that he
hotel
was,
watching film,
he has.
like Sean and Sergey, are they doing that and then telling you what you need to know? Like, how does that work in that kind of a short window before such a big match?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I wasn't watching film, but I was just curious. Like, okay, just give me just at least a couple things that I just need to be aware of, because I think he had tech fall. He beat some, like, his side, the top side of the bracket was not easy, and he beat some, like, he ran through some pretty good wrestlers. Like the guy from Japan, I think he tech falled him in the match before, and
Wow.
so I was like, you know, I was just curious, like, okay, like if he's good on top or something like that, or if he has like some unique takedown, like I can make that adjustment pretty quick. But if it's like something strategy wise, right? Like, or even if it's something strategy wise, like if it's a quick adjustment I can make, I always want to know it. But it's like, if I have to change my style for it, like, don't even tell me, because I don't want to have to change, who I am. I think ultimately that's a really important part of what has made me successful, is that, like, I'm an offensive wrestler. I want to go out there, get my hands on you, and get to scoring positions. And the more I can do that, the more likely it is that I'm going to win. And going into that match, I knew, like, this guy is, he's a Russian guy. I don't know if he's from Dagestan, but he's from that, kind of Caucasus region somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know, like, okay, he's probably going to want to slow the match down, right? Lull me to sleep a little bit, and like strike kind of like low, and then strike heavy. So a big part of going into that match was just like keep the pace high the entire time. And I feel like when I keep the pace high, my positioning actually gets better. If I make a mistake, like letting someone in, I'm good enough at scrambling that I can find my way out of it a lot of time, or at the very least, like, I'm going to make you work really hard, get back up, and come right back at you, to where, like, when the score, I looked at the world championships this year versus the previous year. And like the amount of points that I scored in almost every match was like double or triple, like 8 to 10 points, I think, is what I was scoring at this world championships, per match. And so usually that is when I feel like I win those matches.
Yeah. That's
So
that
strategy,
conditioning
it's
coming
like,
through, that
it's
pace.
important. Pace, conditioning, just mat awareness, like, in situational awareness of, like, when I get into certain scrambles, I feel like that's one of the things that, I consider my strengths, is like I kind of can figure it out a lot of the time, just from a lot of playing those positions, and technically being sound in there. So yeah, I mean, that's really what it came down to. And even after the match, I remember the key point in the bronze medal match, and this was cool, was like, I was going at him the whole time. I think I took like 10 shots in that match, and some of them, like, the mistake I made was I just got a little too lazy and a little bit too worried about, like, a chest lock or a roll through, and so we stalemated, and then we had to come back up. But like the last 30 seconds, I took a pretty good shot. I end up in like a chest lock position. I'm in on like a high crotch, and I'm thinking to myself, like, if I get up right here, it's going to be like, I'm going to be winning by a point with 30 seconds left, and anything can happen. Like, I feel like I've seen way too many matches where, like, a ref calls a caution in one, or, it's just like, that's not the best position to be in, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like in the guy's favor who's losing by one. And so I'm like, if I let him roll me through right here, it sounds crazy, but I'm like, if I let him roll me through, he's going to be winning. But I think I'm going to be in like a leg half position, to where, like, I roll through, or he rolls me through, I can, like, basically shuffle his leg up, under, and over, get him in a leg half, and like score some exposure points. And so I kind of just let the position out. I let him roll me through. He gets 2. He's winning by 1. But then exactly what happens, like I have his leg in my hand and I'm like, if I can pull this through right now, the match is over. Like this is all that I need to do.
Dang.
And I kind of had like I kind of had that like moment of clarity just for like a few seconds. And I get it, pull it through, 2 exposures, and they challenge. And I'm like, all right, I know I exposed him twice. And then, I end up winning 8-4, 8-5. And it was just really kind of a cool moment to like be able to like, it was almost like time had slowed down for a second to be like, this is what wrestling's all about right here. It's just like this being able to like see through positions and like, kind of that scrambling is right. Like thinking 2,
Yeah.
3 moves ahead. So that was a cool moment that, I look back on and I'm like, that's what makes the sport fun is like you get
Hell
put in
yeah.
moments like that.
Well, the fact that you, like you said, you're seeing things happen, moves in advance like that, and to take that risk to be confident enough to go through with it is a whole other thing entirely, right? So it's like, man, that's exciting, and I'm just so pumped for Paris, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. And what I want to talk about Gomez, but real quick, what are next tournaments for you? Are you going to compete before Europeans, or will that be your first one back?
It's kind of TBD for sure. We'll be competing at Europeans. I think the Europeans is like, I love the European Championships, and it's also going to be for the Olympics ranking points. So that'll be a great tournament. Definitely will be going to that. As far as before that, haven't even, I've kind of just been taking these last few weeks to decompress, do some cross training,
Mm-hmm.
and then figure out our schedule. So we're like in the midst of figuring out the schedule, but you'll for sure see me at Europeans.
Love it. And then
Yeah.
Paris is early. Like the Worlds are late, but like I think wrestling at Paris is like mid-August, early August.
Yep.
I actually my whole family looked at going, and it's like absolutely insanity prices, hotels, and like the way they space out the tournament.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
bonkers.
it's like I feel like they could. We wrestled 10 weight classes at the NCAA's in 3 days. It's like they really space this shit out. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah, the
mean?
Olympics is like, yeah, it's a slow tournament. Like I think like I realized that in 2021 was like it felt like the NCAA's were like if you just keep like even if you don't win, if you get pulled back into repechage, it's like then you got to wait till the next day and you wrestle like one match the next day and then you wrestle or one in the morning, one in the evening.
Yeah.
Like it's just very slow.
And do you have a hard pull, or are you not cutting too bad for this?
I'm somewhere in the middle. Yeah, I'm in a really good spot. I feel like where my weight and stuff is at right now. So
Like each night.
I can't complain.
That's good. Because like you guys got to make scratch 2 days in a row, right?
Yeah, we do. So it's
What was the
189 is a good weight class for me.
what was
So
it for you that night?
spot.
Under 10 or more than 10? The day one.
At the World Championships?
Yeah.
No, yeah, under 10. Under 10.
Oh, that's good.
I do I worked with some people, that like as far as like strength conditioning, nutrition that they make sure that I'm in a good spot, So I feel strong, but I don't have to cut, a ridiculous amount of weight.
Because like you guys are big guys, but like just hydrating and all that, you could easily put on 5-6, throughout a day, easy. But you're also competing, so you're bringing that down. Two things I wanted to ask you. Obviously, let's hit on Gomez because this is big. I mean, I'm an Illinois guy. I love Chicagoans. Austin Gomez, when he was coming up, there's the hype around him. I can only rival to like a Jimmy Kennedy, like back in my day. Like he was killing people, and had a great run at Iowa State, even better at Wisconsin. And now we're looking at 149 this year. He could definitely be the top guy. And I think he will be the number one ranked guy going into 149. How long has he been in Ann Arbor? And what are your thoughts on him joining the blue this year?
Oh, I mean, so he came to Ann Arbor, had to be like I wanted to say April, but I think it was actually May. I think he came after the European Championships. I could be wrong. I'm bad with timelines, but it feels like he's been here for a year already because he came to Ann Arbor. And I mean, like I even hosting him on a visit, he came and bounced around some of the RTC guys. So I got to spend some time with him on his visit. And I was like, dude, I'm not even going to recruit you But like, if you don't see that you belong here, like, like I don't know how you're gonna see it. And so I mean, I think pretty quickly he knew that Ann Arbor was the place he wanted to be. I'm speaking for him here, but you know, he just fits in really well. I think, you know, our culture, we can tell when guys, you know, like come in and they belong here, and he was one of those guys. So it's been great having him here. He's been here, like I said, I think 4 to 5 months, could be like a little more than that. But yeah, it is funny because like even at the Worlds, I was talking to Austin, and he was like, you know, a big implication was like he obviously wants to, you know, qualify and wrestle in the Olympics and has these world and Olympic goals. And so he you know, I think he knew that, you know, the world championships, it would have been a great opportunity to qualify. Ultimately that didn't happen. And so I talked to him, and he was like, well, looks like, you know, I'm you know, it's gonna be that much harder for me to come back for the college season. And I was like, rightfully so. You know, you want to focus on you know, your qualification for, you know, the Pan Ams, and
Because you
that's
guys are
kind
all,
of right in the
you guys
thick of
got to all be
things.
thinking about it all summer, right? You're like, hey, we could use a 149. You're one of the best 149s. And it's
Well,
like,
we pressured him a little bit. I think ultimately I was like, you know what, Austin, like I know what it's like to go through 7 years of college. I think that was where I had the unique perspective, as I was like, I loved it, but I understand if you don't want to do it,
mm-hmm.
because like it's a lot, right? And ultimately it has to be done in the right way. Otherwise, even that last season is going to be terrible. I think if he tries to if he tried to wrestle an entire season, 30 something matches, that would just,
No
you know,
way.
that wouldn't make sense. But nobody that is that age is doing that anymore, right? They're very strategically wrestling when you're fifth, and that's going to be something that probably you'll see even more this season now with like all these COVID guys becoming fifth, 6 years, is like you have to almost pick and choose when you want to compete. You know, and that's the big thing, is like you want to limit your matches to the big ones and maybe a few, you know, kind of warm up or just, you know, lighter matches where, you know, you can get some reps in and whatnot, because trying to go through that grind 7 times, or, you know, 5 times, right, through 7 seasons it's a toll on your body. So but ultimately it's funny because I did say to him, like, well, just, you know, well, you know, don't never say never, right? Because you just never know with Sean and the coaches, these guys, you know, they're
Sean can sell anything to anyone, man. Like
I was
dude.
gonna say water to a well, right? Water to a well. I mean, he got me. He was a big reason why I was at Michigan. So, and then I just laughed because, you know, like last week, or was it this? It was late last week was kind of when it announced, and so I was pumped. I was messing with Austin. I sent him like the back to school Billy Madison meme.
Well, let's just
Is
hope
I was like,
that,
yeah,
I was just gonna say, like, all this Big Ten season is gonna be insane, and we're hearing that maybe Ferrari might even come back this year, maybe next year. You know, who knows, right? But we all
yeah.
get so excited to these coaches and to these wrestlers. Please compete in the big dual meets, man. We got like 5 dual meets, and I know it's all injuries, and I get it, right? You got to do what you got to do. It's all about March, but we got Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan, Iowa, Michigan, Penn State. I texted Sean. I'm like, man, that Michigan, Penn State, look out. And so I tweeted that I'm rolling into that duel 200 amines deep, man. You guys got, I want to go in right in the middle of everyone, because that's
Yeah.
going to be a hostile environment. And like, man, you look at the 5 transfers, like it's awesome what Sean's doing. And, you know, he's the pride of Illinois, man. I know he's like a Michigan guy to you guys, but man, what the whole staff is just incredible. And I can't wait for this exciting season. And Gomez being back, God, that's exciting.
Yeah, I mean, it put the cherry on the top for this season. I think, you know, we stay healthy. That dual meet's going to be like so fun just for this, and it's going to be great for the sport of wrestling, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think people have, you know, they have opinions about the transfers and whatnot, but it's like ultimately, like moments like that are where you're going to be like, at least as a fan, you're going to be like, I'm kind of happy, right, that
Oh yeah.
this whole NIL thing came about and this transfer rule came about, because you literally have like an all-star match, you know, and not even just the Michigan Penn State. I mean, there's 5, like I saw your 5 dual meets, and I was just like, dude, these are all going to be star-studded, like, you know,
Insane. Yeah. And that doesn't even include
like,
like NC State, Virginia Tech. That's always a banger. Big 12 is getting really deep right now.
yeah,
So it's like there's going to be, and hopefully, the wrestling and everyone wrestles, but like it's going to be an awesome season. After this year, though, the last 2 years has been an exodus with the COVID guys, but like after this year, it's going to be a whole new rebirth of guys. So I'm equally as excited for that, but this year is going to be one last banger of just some of these names that have been around for forever. It's crazy.
The grown men amongst the boys.
And what about, man, one of my favorite guys is your cousin, bro, the assassin, Cam Amine. I mean, that guy goes out headhunting in March. How many years he got left?
He's got this year, next year, so 2 more years, including this season.
Man, love
Cam
watching
the
that
Butcher.
dude.
That's his nickname.
That's his name, the Butcher?
He's the Butcher.
He seems scary,
the Butcher.
bro. He's all business out there.
Yeah.
And that's your that's not your brother, that's your cousin, right?
He's my cousin. I mean,
That's
basically
right.
like him and Jordan. Yeah, his older brother. They're like extended brothers. We're like the 4 brothers because really we grew up in the same neighborhood. Even my uncle lived in Brighton too, my hometown. So, I mean, we basically spent our entire childhood growing up together. So Cam and his older brother Jordan are like brothers to me.
Well, it's just good that you guys are wrestling, cool. So you guys don't have to be cold calling all the life insurance people in Michigan for your dad's business, because otherwise it'd just be a bunch of wrestlers on the phones all day, man. Like that's I'm sure there's a little bit of that too, but man,
good point. Yeah, a little bit of both. I was an intern there. I'll admit it. I had a great time though. Yeah. I was done cold calling. So
it's gonna be I get excited talking about this wrestling stuff, and the season's coming up here. It's like just when I get to October, it's like, all right, it's business time now, right? Like season's starting back up, practice is going. We're in the thick of college football. It's just a fun time. Is it this week or next week? It's the first official day of practice.
It's this week.
It's this week.
I think the middle of this week. I think it's the middle of this week. Yeah.
Okay.
Nice, I want to give a shout out too before we end to my boy Stevan Micic, world champ.
Bro,
he's the one we left out. World championships.
I was just saying. Let's talk about him a little bit. That run, is absolutely insane, bro. Insane run. Is he going with you guys to all this stuff, or is he kind of doing his own thing? He's actually in Chicago camp? Right now.
Yeah, the fact that it was in Serbia too, he's obviously, that's kind of his home territory. So he had all of his own stuff aligned. He's done a really good job of building. He built the Chicago Galaxy Wrestling Club. Him and his dad is, kind of been the man behind the madness. I keep telling him that he doesn't want to take the credit, but I'm like, what you've been able to do in the last 2 years, like Stevan has had some incredible results, and him and his dad have a really unique relationship where they make it work. And so, they're also like the club that they're building can be like a one-kind thing that I don't know if any RTC is doing right now, which is like trying to build an international club, with a home base in the United States where guys are coming from all over the country or all over the world. Sorry, not just mostly all over the world, right? Like to come train in the United States. And
I see videos of him, those guys going to like Japan for weeks at a time. It's like, man, they're doing something very unique, and you got to be impressed. And what an incredible run, and just again the heart he wrestles with. That the beginning of that Ogoyev match, the first period you're watching it and you're like, it's going to be hard to see a way where he wins this. And then boom, he makes it happen. And then the next 2 rounds, he really kind of confidence from that match had to really kick in because he really started rolling. Yeah. After that, it was like, wow. And like, man, if you're going out with Stevan Micic in Serbia right now, you're probably going to have a pretty good time because he's got the baby face. People love him over there, man. That's got to be so fun.
I did. Hey, I took advantage of that. The night he won the world title, I'm like, what are you doing tonight? I want to
seriously, dude. Man, now that's man. It just look at that. I mean, you got Penn State, you got Michigan. I mean, there's really Cornell's right in there, but like, bro, Michigan, the amount of medalists, it's just incredible. The ecosystem you guys have going right now, and you're doing it a unique way. And I love how you guys are doing it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the beauty of it, right? Is that we're kind of doing it in a very blazing our own trail here. And 2 world medalists, a world champ, 3 world medalists, including a world champ, having 7 guys from our club competing there, 5 alumni is like, it's got to be at least recognized that we're building something special here. And it's just
Amen.
another, like, like tribute to the leadership at Michigan, I think has kind of come a long way since, when I got there. It's like, we took the torch from McFarland and, what he built. And then, it's just like we've kept trying to just keep putting Michigan as, on the map, as trying to be that program, the program. Right. So
100%.
it's been real cool. It's been real cool. And I wouldn't want to have it any other way.
Remind me, when was your first semester on campus, your true freshman fall? When was that? 17 or 16?
15.
No.
Yeah,
Bro.
15. 15. I'm an old man. I'm father time at Michigan. That's what I call myself.
The growth in the program, and I mean, even for yourself, it's like from then to now is just, it's next level. I mean, it's really impressive to see that. And yeah, a lot of guys laid that foundation, but you guys really carried it forward. So, and it's just awesome to watch it happen, and awesome to have you on the podcast. Consider this my application to be San Marino's press man for Paris, baby. I don't know who I gotta talk to, but I am in for that, dude. Anything I can do, I'm gonna fly to San Marino, whatever. I'll go into the tile business, anything.
Yeah, it's a pretty competitive application process right now. A lot of people. No,
yeah.
Well, I told you, hey, we're gonna work something out,
dude. I'm gonna call your pops. I'm gonna call you.
You gotta talk to the yeah. He's the manager. My dad. That's his official role that I've basically given him at this point. Is he's like the manager.
Well, I just picked up Securian as an account, so maybe we can work something going on there. That's
okay, yeah.
Because they're a clearinghouse for Securian, right? Securian Financial.
I think so. Don't quote me. I've like purposely just
that internship was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was a very long time ago, 5 years. So man, that was my senior year of college 5 years ago,
That's crazy, man.
My first senior year. That's what somebody said. What was that? Your first, second, or third senior year?
Man. Well, I know you got family in Chicago, man. So if you're ever out here, let me know. It'd be good to grab a meal, and wish you luck this fall, and can't wait to see what's next, brother.
Thank you, Ryan. It's always a pleasure, man.
Take care, big dog.
You too.